And we are live. Welcome, everybody. My name is Dancy Bearded. I am the co-host of this Doctor's Orders live stream. This is on the Dr. Nick's Amazing Man Stuff YouTube channel. Whether you're watching now in real time, shout out to you guys, or you come back to watch the replay because you're at work or your schedule just doesn't fit, we appreciate it all around. But if you could do something for us just to give back slightly, hit that thumbs up on the YouTube live stream. This video will live on, and that does help out to reach new people. Again, my name is Dan. I love working with this company. I help create content, help with marketing, help developing, and help get the kind of transparent information about this company and Nick and Jill and what they're doing. And speaking of Nick, that's the gentleman over here to my side. Nick, how are you doing today, sir?
Doing good, man. You know, it's like the topic of today. Go figure. When your topic is stress and anxiety, you know, I don't have much, but it's like it lets you step back and like think about the times you do. So it's, you know, it's like a good day to talk about this stuff when you're stressed. Good day to talk about this stuff, I guess, even when you're not. So
For sure.
No, man, getting off of a long holiday weekend, got some good family time in. Hopefully everyone else did too. Would love to hear what everybody did and get some good stories if anyone's got any, you know, good stuff from this weekend. We're all ears, but yeah, man, doing good.
Good. And yeah, please drop a comment in the chat if you guys had something that was positive from the weekend. Nick and I were catching up on our weekends, and both of them were filled with projects and family time. That's kind of the main thing, hanging out with the wives, hanging out with the kids, and then getting stuff done around the house that you kind of put off, you know, for a while. And then it's like, all right, no more excuses. Let's get these shrubs out. Let's fix this fridge, whatever's going on. So it was a really nice weekend for that.
Yeah, it was, man. That's music, family, friends, and projects. It was kind of that was like the theme, you know. We started off with a concert, ended with had a lazy day in the middle, and then kind of wrapped it all up with projects and family time and helping people with stuff.
Now, you've gotten everybody invested in your music interest and your music hobbies and your collections of music memories. What was your music experience this weekend, especially because we've discussed a little bit of this?
Yeah, we did. Yeah. So this weekend, Necrogoblicon, our friends from Necrogoblicon were in town and they made their way up through Brooklyn. I guess they were there on Friday and they were here up near us on Saturday. And Chris W, who might be in the chat here today, I don't know if I've seen him yet. I know he's got some continued projects from this weekend he's working on. But yeah, it was the Necrogoblicon concert. It was awesome. You know, what's crazy is, speaking of stress and anxiety, it's actually kind of a cool story to throw in there and kick some things off, actually, is, their singer wasn't with them, Nikki.
Oh,
and you know, this was their first, it was a strange time to not have Nikki there because Nikki writes a lot of the music. He composes, he's a singer, but he actually does like a whole lot of the compositions for like the whole songs, like multiple, you know, musical parts of the song. But he's never been a huge fan of touring. It takes a lot out of him. He gets lots of stress and anxiety leading up to tours while he's on tour. And his method of dealing with that stress is drinking too much. And he just doesn't like, you know, that cycle anymore. And so he made the choice to not tour on this tour, which was strange because it was their first headline tour that they had in big venues. You know, they were the headlining bill. They had everyone else on tour with them. But they had this really great singer with them. They basically split the singing role into two roles. They have the Goblin, who's normally just dancing around on stage. John Goblicon took on the clean vocals. And this guy named Dickie, who sings for another band called Infant Annihilator. So Dickie's like, you know, great vocalist, and he was basically taking all the growling and all like the extreme stuff and doing all of that. So it was like they took one Nicky and divided it between a Dickie and a Goblin, and they were good to go. Yeah, but it was really cool just kind of seeing them do their thing regardless of the changes and regardless of what else was kind of going on. You know, they made it all work and it sounded great. It was an awesome show.
Dude, that is super cool. That that pairing sounds, like you said, fantastic. Somebody's like, all right, I'll take this side of stuff, you take the other one, and probably made for a cool experience.
Yeah, and we did see Hunt the Dinosaur, Ruben. Yeah, they were awesome. And Ether Realm was the direct support band opening up for the Goblins. And Yeah, they do. They definitely have some brutal, gruesome names. And yeah, there's Chris. Yep, he was there with us. He survived. We were like the taxi service for everyone this show. We our friend Sarah met us at our friend's house. We brought him and Sarah with us, and we picked up Chris on the way, and then we made our way out to Worcester. So we had like a car full of us showing up out there. It was good. It was an awesome show.
Yeah, as many of you know, I've never really listened to any kind of rock, let alone any kind of like death metal or screamo or any of that stuff. Like it's just not on my radar. Just wasn't raised with it at all. And
You'd
so
have so much fun though,
I
dude.
would I would go. Like I would go for the experience. I would go for the people watching. I love
Oh
people,
yeah.
right? I just enjoy being around people. As a teacher, I took great pride in being able to connect with every type of student. Didn't care what they were like. I would find their interest. So I would go for sure. Yeah,
Oh, you'd have
I would
so much fun. Oh, it'd be a
absolutely.
blast. You'd love it. And like,
Yep.
especially a show with friends would be cool. Like for this one, we bought the Palladium now sells like this venue called the Palladium where they're playing. They now sell like these reserved booths. So like you can buy a normal, GA ticket. It's standing room only, or you can find a couple of spots to sit. And then they sell these booths. And Chris booked the booth and we split it with our group, and it was awesome because you were right behind the soundboard. So like the front of house, they got all their mixers and everything laid out. One little level up behind that, you have this whole empty area that's just corded off for the people in the booths. So you get like this private viewing area that's right behind the soundboard. It's sick.
Whew.
Very, very
So
nice.
yeah, and Jill brings up a band that's local to me. They're just about 10 minutes down the road from my house. I actually never really like went to a show or interact with the band. I just knew the lead singer, Craig Owens, really well. I've been in the studio and actually recorded with him. I'm in the background of a song. So I knew
Oh
him well,
yeah,
but
you mentioned that. I didn't know that was with
yeah.
those dudes. Yeah.
Yep. Yep. Is that what genre of rock would that be? Just rock or?
You'll have to ask Jill. I don't even know them.
Okay. All right. All right. Yeah, they super popular around here. And then kind of Craig Owens kind of transcended the band after they kind of split and broke up. And so he became a pretty big deal. I haven't heard about him lately at all, but back in the day, he was definitely like one of those local legends.
Dude, yeah, it's always cool. Mayhem Fest is fun, man. That's always a good show. Lots of mainstream bands in that. But there's, you always get the good, the stuff sprinkled in there as well. And you see some up and coming bands at those festivals, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. So it was funny because like Dickie, their singer that was traveling with him, is from Worcester. So a lot of his family is local. So like his grandma showed up to the show along with the guitar player for Necrogoblicon, his girlfriend, Carrie. Her uncle came to the show also with her cousin. And so we had like all this family there, and it was a packed show, right? And it's like you got a grandma and an older uncle, kind of coming. And so we had, they had no clue where they were going to put them to watch the show, because it's just packed at the bar, mosh pits everywhere on the floor. Everyone's running around. It's madness. And I know the Palladium really well, and I know a lot of the people that work there. And so I got one of the security guys. They hooked us up with all access passes, so I could kind of bring people around to places where you're not technically supposed to go. And I got both grandmas and cousin and uncle and two people they had with them, like 6 people. I got them up on the wings on the side of the stage. There's like this elevated area where you can kind of go up on either side of the stage. And I got them all situated up there. And it was funny because they were trying to bring him up there. And the guy at security's like, oh, I don't know. No, we can't let everybody up here. Like it's closed area. And then so I went up and asked him, and I was like, hey, Jamie, is it cool if I bring this group up here real quick? I'm just going to put them all right there. And he's like, oh yeah, Nick, it's fine. Yeah, right over there.
Nice.
And so I'm
That's
like,
beautiful.
you'd think the people with laminates would be able to bring people anywhere they want to be able to go inside the show, but
Right.
apparently the buddy boy system still applies.
Hey, whatever gets the job done. And yeah, Warp Tour. So for us, it was at Comerica, or different stadiums where like we had baseball teams mainly. And yeah, it was huge. And it was like if I remember correctly, like a several day event. Like you got wristbands and you could go for like the full like 3-day weekend. And so I guess I did see rock. I just never really listened
It was
to
all a
music.
blur.
It was just like I was just people watching. Like I love, like I go to the airport, I go early because I just like to watch people. I study them, their mannerisms, their interactions, and Warp Tour, some of the greatest people watching of all time.
Oh yeah, yeah, it
Mm-hmm.
definitely is. The
Yeah.
Necrogoblicon played at Warp Tour a few years back, and they invited Jill and I out. And that was actually one of my funny claims of fame. Is bands always joke with me. They're like, "How the hell how'd you get backstage with a cooler full of beers?" And I was like, "Well, you gave me a bracelet, and I told them that you said it was fine, so here I am." And like, I always try to push the envelope a little. And at Warp Tour, when we went, I actually snuck my whole entire Jeep along with a barbecue and a cooler full of chicken and stuff to cook in the back bus lot with the
Wow.
rest of the buses. And so like the guys from Necro were cracking up. They're like, "Dude, we thought getting backstage to the Palladium with a cooler full of beer was funny. Like, you smuggled in your whole Jeep this time." Like,
That is
it was
great.
that was awesome.
That is awesome. Awesome. So those are probably examples of ways to de-stress, right? And like, and we're
Yes.
going to get into the topic, but legitimately speaking, is going to a rock concert like that, is that a way to let out stress, let out I don't know if I want to use the word aggression. Explain
I
it to
would.
someone like me that doesn't have that full-blown experience. Is that something that helps you like
Oh,
genuinely,
yeah.
or how does that work?
1000%, man. What's funny is I actually get really good stress relief from metal in general. And
Okay.
people, I've been asked by people who don't listen to metal, they're like, "Oh, the music's just so aggressive. Like, doesn't it like get you worked up and that kind of thing?" And I guess in certain times it can. But in other times, like if I'm really stressed, listening to like really intense, like angry music, it actually calms me down quite a bit. It has like the opposite effect that you'd think it would. And shows just amplify that for me, right? Because it's the shared experience and energy that kind of feeds into it. And I feel like all shows are like that. Like you get that pent up energy feeling walking in because everyone's kind of full of anticipation and everything else. And you kind of feel that shared vibe. And then afterwards, you feel like this collective, like exhale happen at the end of it. And I feel like everyone walks out like kind of stripped of stress and feeling like they kind of left whatever was bugging them back at the show. And I think it's like such a weird group mentality thing. It definitely rubs off on you, you know?
Okay.
I think it's a
Interesting.
great way to manage stress. I feel a lot better after a good show.
Yeah. So if I have stress, I listen. I just am not familiar. I'm learning. Like Dan Beard of the North is in the chat right now. I actually started to get introduced to some of that music by talking to him and watching his shows. And we have a mutual friend that is just unbelievable on the guitar, unbelievable, and he does that type of music. And so it's just kind of a foreign thing to me. But I'm dabbling. But for me, if I have stress, a something I can do to help with that is music, but mine is very lyrical. I usually listen to rap and hip hop, and it usually
Mm-hmm.
I go towards an artist that I can relate to. So, for
Yep.
example, it's very rare, but if I'm feeling down on myself, I will listen to NF. He's a rapper out of Gladwin, Michigan, where my parents live. Kind of crazy, tiny little town. And I believe, and I heard a line just this last week that really stuck with me, and it said, "Music will meet you where you are." And I was like,
Mm.
"Oh, wow. That is a banger of a line. Music will meet you where you are." And I'm like, "Yeah, holy crap, yeah." And so for NF, it just kind of gives you that relatable factor where you're like, "Oh yeah, I'm not alone. I'm not crazy. I'm not just thinking about these thoughts to myself." Or if I have another stressor, right? Let's say I feel like people are against me, whether it's
Mm.
like a group that's talking about me or people making fake accounts about me or whatever it is. I feel like the world's out to get me. And a lot of people will hate on this, and that's okay. It's my choice. But I put on Drake. Drake is all about, he's not about talking about drugs. He's not about talking about weapons. He's not talking about all these things. Most of Drake's music is about haters. It's about people like being negative to him, people
Mm-hmm.
not giving him the accolades or the love or the acknowledgement he thinks he deserves. And dude, when I listen to those lyrics, it just speaks to my soul through and through. And I go from like being kind of like to like standing up, having a little swagger, being like, yeah. And I almost embrace that kind of like villain type thoughts where in a good way, where it's like, oh, you're gonna talk about me, you're gonna try to bring me down. Let me give you something to talk about. Let me put on a show for you. And that
Yep.
music will literally transform me. Now put me in my truck with my windows down playing that music by myself. Like absolutely next level. And that relatability just helps me process my thoughts and then put them in a box that I can hold.
Yeah. You know what gets me about like really lyrical stuff like that is like once in a while you'll hear like something in lyrics tell like a really good story, all right? Like an overcoming something story, or or you'll just hear like different lyrics that kind of speak to you. And what I feel like is it's kind of cool just from like perspective, knowing that like if something's in your head and someone else is singing about it, like you're not isolated, like everyone, other people are going through the same crap, they're going through the same stuff that you are. And it's cool to listen to him talk about it. Like Aesop Rock has got a song called Rings, and like the main chorus of the song says they'll cut you down just to count your rings. And it's like I that resonates with me so well when like what's going on is what you're just talking about. Like the people who watch this stream with fake accounts and don't leave comments and then send you messages and stuff afterwards and post about the things we talk about,
Yep.
literally going out of their way just to watch us, just to hate us.
Mm-hmm.
And like that line speaks right to it. They'll cut you down just to count your rings, right? People will tear you down just to see how you get back up, right? They'll tear you down just to see what you're made out of. It's like a dissection experiment for them, I think.
Yeah, yeah, and that, like you said, the music. Joyner Lucas is another great one. He tells, and I think he's the best storyteller in all of music, or all of the music that I'm familiar with. And so, yeah, it helps me feel like other people understand it, and then you have that ability. It's almost the opposite of misery loves company. it's
Yeah.
the it's the opposite, right? Everyone loves
Hmm.
company. It's just you tend to group towards whatever you're looking for. And at that time,
Hmm.
I'm just looking to know that I'm not crazy. I'm just looking to know that I'm not alone. And doing what I do and what you do and a lot of other people, what I do is very unique. There's not a lot of people I can text or call during the day to talk about my problems. And I say
No.
problems very lightly because I know in the grand scheme of problems, mine are teeny tiny, minuscule. But there's not a lot of people I can be like, hey, man, let me run this situation by you. You tell me what you think, because they just don't get it. They just don't understand.
Right.
But I put on the NF, I put on the Drake, the Joyner Lucas, some of these artists, and it's like, okay, all right. It's not the exact same thing, but it's definitely transferable. And it just literally just it's crazy to think that sounds can do that when you actually sit down and like try to comprehend. That's wild. It can
Hmm.
change your mood, can change your smile, can change your posture. There's so much
Oh
that
yeah.
can change.
Oh, huge.
Yep,
Yeah, a
absolutely.
beard of the a beard of the North, Dan. He's got it. He's got it right. I mean, like, yeah, there's something about it. A lot of the stuff that the goblins sing about, like Necrogoblicon, is like end of the world kind of stuff and some apocalyptic type things. And there is something calming, right, about listening to lyrics like that, I guess, because it's like when you feel like your problems have so much finality in them, like listening to something that's about ultimate finality, I guess, is kind of relieving in
For
a
sure.
way.
Yeah, and Ruben says this line hit him, death is eternal, but art is immortal.
Hmm.
It's a
Dead on,
fact.
dude.
That's
Yeah.
a fact. And if
Yeah.
if anybody, I know we've got a lot on death metal and rock and stuff. Anybody wants to dabble in my world, I would say check out the song Suffice, Suffice by NF. And this is in his new album. And his new album's not my favorite album, but it does have a few bangers on it. NF is super interesting. He started as a Christian rapper, then went kind of away from that. And then this album is more towards that, I would say. He's got some songs that are more in that light, but he's got several that aren't. And Suffices, that's a song that just hits me. And he's got No Excuses, Options. I mean, there's so many great songs out there. So
I like
that,
that path. He just wanted to go for like the Christian rock triple myrrh before he
right.
went for a platinum album.
Yeah, exactly,
That's
exactly.
what it
Now
was.
he's dipping back into it. So at least that's my takeaway on it. Is
That's
it
awesome.
seems like it goes a little bit more. So our topic today, guys, as we already just kind of started to bleed into, is the idea of stress and anxiety. We all have it, some more than others. I do genuinely believe that there are genetic dispositions to having more stress, to having more
Mhm.
anxiety. But I do believe there are things that you can mentally choose, physically choose to do to help deal with that, to help maintain it, to help manage it, to help improve it. And that's what we want to talk about today. We want to go over some things that are stressors in your life. And then we want to talk about things that we do. And then we want to hear about what you guys do. So, Nick, if you don't mind starting and be as vague or general as you want to be or need to be, what are some things in your life that would be kind of the most common stressors or things that give you anxiety, even if it's few and far between? There definitely, I would assume, is a theme of things that kind of trigger it.
Well, yeah, and it's different. You know what I've learned is it is different for everybody, and it's different for me depending on what I have going on.
Yeah.
You know, and we're just yeah, I mean, what I'm doing that day, what I'm supposed to be doing that day versus what I am actually doing that day, right? And I mean, there's like the blanket statement stuff you can throw out there that stresses, you know, most people out, right? Like I made some just notes and lists here, but like you got the common ones where if I was being super generic and I was talking about this is what I would talk about is like, you know, being a business owner is, you know, taxes, the IRS, the Department of Revenue, the economy, kids, World War III, all the things that are like in any over analytical person's mind or business owner's mind. I mean, those are obviously going to be stressors, but you know what really gets me the worst though, I feel like, are the things that aren't like the poster children for stress. Like for me, the things that really get me stressed the most are things that I need to do that are up in the air.
Dude, you're
Like,
taking my thunder here. That's me. Yeah, go ahead.
so just so you know, Dan and I did not pre-rehearse this, and I'm actually really interested to see the duality here because I bet you we are very, very similar in this respect, just like we are in most others.
The only point I was going to make is that one. But yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so I'm going to circle that one, and Dan and I will both talk about it.
Yeah.
The thing that stresses me out worse than others literally is when there's things to do that are up in the air. And then tailing off of that theme, I think the thing that really gets me the most is things that are happening that are out of my control that have unknown outcomes. Those are things that I will sit there and obsess over, right? Call me a control freak if you want. I like to at least have the ability to influence the outcome of things that impact me, right?
Yep.
And when I feel like that control isn't even like, it's not even like I don't have total control of the situation and every moving piece. It's that if something gets set into motion and I have zero ability to influence it before it gets to the end point that either impacts me positively or negatively, I don't like that. And I obsess over it. And that causes stress. So unknown outcomes, things up in the air. Another thing that I'll do is things to, and this is an interesting one, and it plays into the first one, and it plays into with one of my mechanisms for dealing with stress, is things to do that aren't scheduled. And that kind of goes into things being up in the air, right? I find in my mind, when I know I have a list of 10 things and I haven't found a place of where I'm going to do them yet, I haven't put them on a calendar, they're not on a list. They're things that I know in the back of my mind. Being a nerd, I'll use this term, but it's like the idle process, right? It's like on a computer, if you have 100% CPU resources available, right, and you're using 10% of them, the other 90% is reserved as system idle, right? And I feel like if I'm doing stuff, but I have things in the back of my head that need to get done, but I haven't like put them on a calendar or a task list yet, I feel like those things are chewing up my available idle processes, right? And so I don't have all the brain power I need to do everything else because there's a little percentage back there still remembering that, okay, I need to get these things done and I haven't found a home for them yet. Or I don't know how they're going to get done, right? It's like the unknown thing again. And I feel like that is when I start getting like these weird waves of like anxiety, and I start getting stressed, and I start self-destructing. And I guess that leads into the next one. Any one of these things can be combined together, and I start doing this thing mentally where I start piling, right? I'm a piler. And so when one or more things is going wrong, what my brain does to self-destruct and turn against me is it'll start instead of finding resolutions for the things I'm worried about, it'll start finding more problems that I don't have resolutions for. And I'll be like, oh God, I got this to worry about. Oh God, and what about that? And then there's this I got to worry about. And then I'll walk into the office with Jill downstairs, and I'll just be like, I got this, and this. half of which I wasn't even worried about before I made the damn list of everything I'm worried about, right? And I just make the problem worse. And so it's like, those are the things that I think get me the most. So it's not like even a category of thing, right? Because any category of thing can fall into any of those buckets of something that's either up in the air, unknown outcome, not controllable outcome, or just needs to be thought about and hasn't had the time to be thought about, right? Anything can really fall into those categories. It could be a summer program for my son that I need to schedule with Jill, and we haven't had time to talk about it. And I know it's going to sell out. And I know until we do, that clock is ticking down. And then we figure it out, it's sold out, right? And I know that's coming, right? So it's like that could fall in there. It could be a financial, road blocker that has to happen with the business that I need to figure out. It could be anything. But if I don't schedule it, and we'll talk about how to deal with these things in a bit here, but I think that's where that really comes in, is like, how do you get rid of that crap? Like, what do you do to file it away or to make sure it's going to get done, and to turn it from being something that you're stressed about into just another thing that you have to do, and then moving through it and getting it done and moving on to the next, right? Like, how do you get unstuck, right? Because I get stuck when that happens.
Oh yeah.
And I think that's going to be a big part of today, is like, what the hell do people do to kick themselves back? And when they got a mountain in front of them, how do they turn it into individual molehills instead of one big mountain?
For sure. For sure. And guys and girls, feel free in the chat to share some of the things that are your stressors that give you anxiety, as detailed as you want to, or as vague as you want to as well. And Eric, thanks for stopping in, man. Appreciate you. Thank you for dropping that comment. We know that you always come back and watch, so thank you. But yeah, mine are extremely similar to Nick. I don't have what I see as a lot of the most common stressors out there. I don't worry about World War III. I don't watch the news. I don't care about political stuff. I I I see so many people tie themselves to political affiliation, and that guides
Ugh.
their entire stress of their life. Did you see this that happened? Did you see this? What about this person? People
Mm.
watching polls as the elections get going, election night, and all this stuff. And I mean, hey, I it was kind of like when I was a teacher. I didn't like my administration, but I was always able to worry about my four walls in my classroom. I don't really care about that stuff. I could go crazy. I can go in the halls and join everybody stressing and crying and complaining. I just didn't worry about it. I'm kind of the same way on politics. It,
Mm-hmm.
of course, it matters. Of course, it's important. But inside of my house, I've been an adult for several different presidents, both political parties, changing world, changing economy. At the end of the day, it's not that super different inside of my house. And if
Nope.
you super analyze those things and you super identify with those things, it's going to cause stress. It's going to cause all these things that just aren't worth it. So I don't have those. I literally don't have marriage stress. My kids, Violet's crazy. The boys are nuts stuff, but I don't stress about my kids. Like I don't worry about them. It's not something that is on my mind or that I worry about. For me, my two biggest stressors, and one of them I know the reason behind, the other one I'm not exactly sure. It's just kind of how I'm wired. One is money for sure. I think that comes from growing up without money. I think
Mm-hmm.
that comes from being an adult at a point where I had no money. I've told it many times, but Sam and I got our bank account, our savings, we didn't have stocks, didn't have anything less than $300 with a son. And so it was like one car repair away, one doctor visit away from being negative, from being like in the worst of the worst. And this was with selling everything and stuff. So I still like deeply embedded have that gut feeling. And
Mm-hmm.
so I always feel like if there's opportunities, if there's money to be had or things to gain out there in an ethical, in a great way, I've never crossed that line, never will, but I always feel like I can't stop. And in
Mm-hmm.
teaching, I never had the ability to go get things. You have a set salary and that's it. And so I had to go do private lessons. I had to go tutor. I had to go coach this and that. And I had to go take everything that I could with every given moment. And I feel like if I'm not doing that at any given time, the opportunity cost is huge. That
Yeah.
I'm missing out on things. So that stresses me out. I can't relax. I can't chill. I can't sit back. And so that's definitely a stressor. And then the other one, which kind of pairs with that, is if I have things on my checklist and I feel like I can be getting them done, but something is stopping me from doing that, they start to really weigh on me. They never, ever leave my thoughts. They're
Mm-hmm.
always in my peripheral brain, and I'm always thinking about that. For example, yesterday, we had a bunch of projects that we were doing. We kind of wrapped them up. Violet was going to nap, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to have my chance. But then a little thing came up here, a little thing came up there because I wanted to film. And I wasn't able to film my videos. And I like looked at my week ahead. I'm like, oh, I should have an opportunity here. I should have an opportunity there. I'm going to save it. But just that simple act of saving it is just going crazy in my brain when I knew I
Mm-hmm.
could have done it yesterday if everything aligned correctly. And so for me, those are my biggest stressors, that constant gut feeling of money, even if I'm good, even if I'm set, even if I feel secure, it's always there with me. And then having things on the schedule. And in my life, there's always things on the schedule. There's literally
Yeah.
never a day that's open. So those would be my biggest stressors and forms of anxiety.
Yeah. I mean, dude, that's it. I mean, it's like, especially what you're saying about, well, one, the money thing I think is I think every entrepreneur, someone that's got that mindset is always, that's what drives you, right? We're all a little coin operated. Like to some extent, we'd probably be doing what we're doing, even if we didn't make money doing it. If we didn't have to make money, we'd probably be doing something similar to this. I'd like to think.
Right.
Um, but at the same time, it's like missed opportunities are super duper stressful because all the work that you've put in to get the ones that you have in front of you. And if one presents itself and you don't take it, like it just, like you said, raises the opportunity cost for
Oh,
everything else you've done.
yep. Yep. And Donald said it very beautifully here. And this is stuff I
You're
like
so dead on.
yeah, and I like surrounding myself with people like Donald. I think it was actually Donald who said yesterday the highlight of his weekend was spent. Oh, if it wasn't Donald, it was someone that I talk to often as well. They said they spent the weekend with their non-refundable time with their family. I was
Yeah.
like, oh, wow. The non-refundable time with your family. And then to read it out loud, if anybody listens to this podcast style, which was not a bad idea. Donald said, do you think people will remember you for the amount of stress you operated with? Nope. They will remember you for your time and love you spent and showed them.
Yeah.
That's a fact.
Yeah,
Yep.
1000%. Like no one remembers, like, no one, I've never heard anybody think back to somebody and be like, yeah, no, he was a great guy. He was always so stressed. And I know it was because he was just always trying to do the right thing.
Right.
Yeah. No
Right.
one's ever going to think that,
Right. No, it's true. It's true. And Ruben, I know, and he says, Dan, I get that in a way. My check is directly related to completed work. Dude, yeah, same. I mean, that's how, and Nick's the same way. That's any kind of entrepreneur. It's like you are directly related. Your output is your input. And so it's like, and even like working like with companies like Dr. Nick's and stuff, like I always feel like I'm like, all right, I gotta make sure that I'm putting my value out there. I gotta make sure I'm taking these opportunities to show the value and improve the company and all these things. So for me, and again, in the grand scheme of things, I don't consider myself a person that is stressed. I don't consider myself a person that is anxious, but I am acutely aware of myself, and those are the ones that would trigger me for sure. For sure.
Yeah. I mean, like you say, yeah, Ruben, like, when work is slow, that stresses you out. I mean,
Yeah.
that's 1000%. Like if, like the wood shop downstairs, like if we don't have quotes that are sitting there approved and waiting for the next project to happen, that's going to be money out of my pocket to cover the bills that revenue doesn't cover, so that's one of those things. It's like a wood shop is money in, money out. Projects in, projects out the door equals money in the bank. And if that's not happening, then that's one of those things that I sit there and think about.
For sure, for sure. And then me, the concept of saving money versus spending money. I grew up in a very not spending way. It just wasn't an option, wasn't a thing that we do. And so it's just trying to like understand you can't take it with you.
Yeah.
Understand, be here, be present, all those things. Sam's right over in the next room, probably can hear me. But one of my favorite stories when we first started dating, we went out to a diner for like a Coney Island for like breakfast. And she ordered, but mine was like the number 3 like senior special rate. You get like 2 eggs, a piece of bacon, and an orange slice. And then I got my water, had it. And then Sam ordered her combo, and then she added sausage, and then she got orange juice. And my mind was like frazzled. Like and this
You
is a
could have
true.
ordered one that came with that as a side. Like, why didn't you get this?
I couldn't, like, I was like, I just saw my dad, like just me thinking of like ordering and my dad being across the table and thinking about the look on his face if I would have ordered a side of meat and then an orange juice as well. And I had to learn like, okay, that's a little thing. Am I going to remember that in a week, in a month? No, definitely not. And so it's like I had to come back from that, but it's so ingrained from however many years of growing up, you know, and identifying, okay, that's a source of anxiety for me. Is that something that's worth it? Is that something to put my eggs in that basket? No, of course not. Let's
Mm-mm.
grow. Let's learn from that.
God, my
Yeah.
dad was the exact same way though. It was like if he was going to get McDonald's or something and bring it home, it wasn't like, okay, what do you want from McDonald's? It was like, well, this is what's on sale for 99 cents, so I'm getting 12 of them and, you know, eat from the bag of 99-cent cheeseburgers. There was no like fries on the side, no soda, you know, nothing like that. It was
Yep.
like it's like, well, that's how they get you. It's like they put them on
Yeah,
sale and they're going to
exactly.
get other stuff that costs more money and they make up the difference. You know?
Exactly.
Oh
Yep.
God, I just remember hearing that like my whole childhood. Like whatever soda it was like store brand, diet soda, whatever was on sale.
RC Cola.
You know,
Yep.
no
Yep.
special requests.
No, man, that's the same way. And then people are sharing their stressors, and we're going to talk about our methods and coping skills and stuff here. But a big one that a lot of people are talking about is health, and then especially family health. And I
Yeah.
know you and I are on the same page with pretty much everything. And health, it definitely can be a stressor, but family health is even more because oftentimes you feel helpless. Oftentimes,
Yeah.
right, we say things like worry. I love this one here about Ruben. He says, I try not to stress about things I have no power over. No point in freaking out about something you can't do. So true. I try to live my life by that. But then you add in a family member being sick. You
It's so
add in,
hard.
it's so unbelievably hard, especially when you're a fixer, especially when you're a doer, especially when you like to check things off a list. I sure as heck would like to check these things off a list. I would love for Sam's thyroid issues to just be checked off a list. I would love to fix those things, but it's not possible, you know? And
Right.
so many of us can understand that. And Nick, you've had your fair share of personal health complications, I'm sure. And then, I mean, we've talked about a family member that had a real serious battle there. Do you want to touch on the stressors of health on family members' health and just kind of your
Yeah.
thought process and experience there?
Yeah, totally. I mean, that falls in the bucket for me of one of the things I wrote down of unknown outcomes that you don't have control over, right? And that to me, that falls into one of that category of like a family member having something they're dealing with and being sick and having, you know, health problems. That's like the ultimate unknown outcome, and you have zero ability to influence it, right? All you can do is help. And I guess that those are stressful for me in a couple of ways. Because one, you know, it falls into that category of something that stresses me out, like I just said. But also, like Dan, right? I'm a fixer, and which gets me in a lot of trouble,
Yeah,
right?
same.
And I'm sure it gets Dan in a lot of trouble
Uh,
too. Like our wives are very understanding people, and they know we have good intentions. But
yep.
when Jill starts listing off something that's wrong, sometimes I will mistake her telling me those things as not she wants me to listen and hear what is going on and respond and talk through it. I immediately, as she starts listing off problems, I start building a checklist of things I need to fix. And then I start attacking each problem one by one about, well, we could do this about this and this about that and this about this. And she's like, I don't want fixes right now. I
Yep.
just want to talk to you. And so I have to switch from fixer mode to listener mode, I guess, which I have a hard time doing sometimes. But like when with the health issues, I mean, it's yeah, my mom has been through cancer, my dad has dementia. You know, I've had lots of relatives go from both of those things and heart disease and other stuff, and it's, you know, it's really tough to deal with it. And I guess for me, you know, I don't know if I necessarily have a super healthy mechanism for dealing with that. Like I'm very much a compartmentalization kind of a person,
Yeah.
you know, and sometimes I do put things like that in a box. And I have to think about them when they're in front of me and be able to talk through them with people as if they weren't in a box. Cause obviously for them, it's not in a box, right? They're living it. They're going
Yeah.
through it every day. They're going to the doctor's appointments and getting the bad updates and whatever it might be. But I guess in my mind, the hardest part about that, and maybe it's kind of a weird way to think about it, is just controlling my reaction to it, right? Because I don't want the stress of it being an unfixable situation to add stress to someone who's trying to talk to me about something they're already stressed about. So it's like managing my natural reactions, I think, is a stressful part of that. But really, I guess what I focus on with that is I try to just put myself in their shoes a bit. Like, if I was going through that, what would I want on the other end of a phone? What would I want on the other side of the dining room table? And that's usually just someone to just listen, right? They know you're not going to fix anything,
Right.
and they don't expect you to. But what they also do expect you to do is listen compassionately, and not try to put a period at the end of everything and put it away, and that can be really hard sometimes because it's painful. It's hard
Oh,
to
yeah.
listen to someone going through tough stuff like that.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I struggle with that too, because the way that I like to handle those situations with myself personally is usually not the way others do. So for me, if I have something, I generally don't want other people to know about it. Like I
Mm-hmm.
try to keep it to myself, not out of any other reason than I just don't like that attention. I really don't, even from my family. Like I just don't like sharing those things. I don't like talking about them. If I talk about it, it's a crazy thing, but if I have a health thing, something that's out of my control, if I talk about it, that actually brings me stress. But if I just focus on doing what I know I can and just leaving it at that and just kind of powering through and muscling through, which is not always a great situation in other areas. But for me, that's what works the best. And so, yeah, I try to learn what other people need and want. And I've seen a couple people. Mark had a comment, and then also Ruben had a comment that said, simply ask, like, hey, when they start to talk, do you want a solution right now, or do you just want me to listen? And that's probably a great approach for most people, is just ask them what they want. People are going to tell you.
Yeah. And I have to ask that a lot, I do. And like, especially when someone that's coming at me with something that I don't know them super well, and I'm talking to them about it, maybe I'm going to say, okay, well, what do you want here? Like, do you want a solution to this, or are you just wanting to talk?
Yeah,
I'll literally just ask, because
for
it's
sure.
easier sometimes than trying to figure it out.
For sure.
And my
For sure.
natural reaction is to start, and I guess I'm logical as I think through things, right? I'm kind of pragmatic about most stuff, and that can come off as a little cold or uncompassionate,
Hmm.
to people when you go straight for that.
Same. Yep, that's how I am. I don't have any grandparents left. I had two uncles that passed away in their 40s and 50s, and I'm just not a super emotional person. Like, love them, miss them, all that stuff, but I just don't break down emotionally. I just same kind of thing. I just kind of
Mhm.
process it and I keep moving, keep going forward. And a lot of times that's taken as cold, but it's just how I'm wired. It's just how I function. So I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, dead on. And Judd, yeah, my dad's going through dementia, and he hasn't known who I am in a while now. And I think it was interesting because I think it was actually shortly after I shaved my head. I don't think on video anymore he recognized me because I was like a different shape. It's like, I think when you have dementia, people fall into very kind of, your brain has patternistic memory of people, and when they break that pattern, I think they have a really tough time connecting the dots that the person they remember is the person that they're now looking at, and I don't think they can make that connection very easily.
Yeah.
So I definitely know. I know the last. I'm pretty sure I know the last time he recognized me and knew who I was, but it's been years. So it's tough, and you do, if you get a little moment of clarity or a moment of they know what's going on, it's like you gotta keep it as a good memory, man. It's a little, like you said, it's a little victory.
Yeah, and Jill has some great add-ons. She said she used to be a closet sufferer and it wasn't good for her. You taught her how to be able to communicate. And then she followed up and said, I'm fine. And then she went through like what it stood for. And so like I said, if I have something health wise, I usually don't like to talk about it, but I never lie. Like if people ask me what's going on, I'll often just say, like if Sam's like, hey, is everything all right? I'm like, I just got a lot right now. And then I kind of go for, I try not to do that, and I love that Jill says was, because we all know so many people like that, where
Oh
I
yeah.
have I have friends that are 2 or 3 question people. And what I mean by that, I'll be like, hey, Nick, how you doing? As an example, Nick, how you doing? I'm fine. Nick, how are you doing? I'm good. Nick, how are you doing? Oh my God, the world's falling apart. This is going on, blah, 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 blah. and then it like all comes out on the third question, you know? And so I try not to do that. I try to be upfront, but also keep true to what works for me. So yeah, I appreciate that and really like that feedback from Jill.
Oh, that was Jill's motto too. It was like, I'm fine. I'm fine. You
Yeah,
know, it was always be nothing. Nope, I'm good. You know, because she was just used to that. You know, she was used to bad things coming from whenever she did open up. You know, it's hard to retrain that,
for sure.
you
For
know,
sure.
and it's just, yeah, one of those things.
Yeah, Leo, I hope everything worked out. He said health scare last week. I don't think I communicated well with urgent care. That's so important. I'm always baffled when I go into like urgent care or something, and so much of it is just based on what you say. You know, I'm
Oh,
just like,
yeah.
my mind is like, that's crazy. Like, we have family members that aren't the best at communicating what's going on, right? You know, they may
Mhm.
not know a lot of stuff that's going on. And
I
so
know a
then
few of those.
yeah, right. And then you hear about them going to the doctor. I'm like, man, the doctor based this all off of what you told them. Like, that's kind of terrifying to me. But he said, Leo said, making sure to communicate thoroughly with my doctor. Meanwhile, stressed about what may come. Hey, I totally understand, Leo. Here for you, my man. And I hope everything's starting to get better. That's definitely no fun. On a side of medical news of a good update, Sam had a doctor's appointment last week and got the thyroid numbers and stuff checked. And then I've talked about it. They had to wait so long to let her medicine work to see what numbers they
Mhm.
needed to adjust. Well, her follow-up appointment wasn't until August, like 22nd or something. We got it moved to it's either the end of June or July. So we got it moved ahead because some of the symptoms were starting to accelerate. So she'll be in to see the specialist sooner than we expected. So that is good news.
Oh, that's awesome news.
Yeah, on our front. And then, so we only got about 10 minutes before we got to wrap up here. Again, just these shows go by so quick in an amazing way. Generally speaking, or even specific, if you want to break it down, other than the things we talked about already, music, right, being one of them, when you are generally stressed, let's talk about even specifically like that pile that you talked about. You get all
Mhm.
these little things, they start to add up. Are there things other than like getting jobs done, you know, working, we know that. Are there things that you go to that actually help, whether it's just clear your mind so you can work or it just to lower that blood pressure and start to think clearly? Are there things that you generally consciously go to help lower your stress?
Yeah. Yeah, there are. And so there's one that I go to almost every time that always helps. And it used to be destructive stuff, right? Like it used to just be what I found was any way that I used to manage stress was literally an avoidance tactic that would make me feel good for a period of time with whatever little boast of, boost of serotonin and dopamine you got from doing whatever activity it was. Um, and I'm not talking just about bad activities; could be good ones, right? Like going to do a hobby you like or a sport, something like that, to zone out. But then what I realized is that when I came back to reality, the stress was worse, right? Because I didn't my mechanism of coping with stress didn't actually do anything besides just avoid it for a little while, and then it was still there, and a lot of the times worse when I got back. And so literally what I do now, I'll go into like the physical things and other stuff I do, like the gym and skateboarding and activities and hobbies I do to get my head out of it. But what I've found now is the best way to do it. I found that my piles in my mind can oftentimes be distorted and not very realistic. They seem a lot worse than they really are when I do that mentally. And a lot of the times I'll call the same problem three things and count it three times on the list, even though
Oh,
it's really only one.
interesting.
So what I figured out to do, regardless of what I'm going to do to make myself just snap out of it and come back with a clearer head, before I do that, I make a list. So if I'm stressed and I got a pile of stuff going on, if it's one thing, I'll make a list of I'll write the one thing down and then I'll write the steps that it's going to take to resolve whatever that thing is. And at least I know a realistic view of what it is and I know the anatomy of my problem at that point,
This is
right?
so you.
Yeah. And at that point, I can analyze it and I know what it is. And then I can go do something else, like go to the gym, exhaust myself, doing lifting weights or go for a bike ride or, play guitar or edit some video, whatever it might be, right? And then I come back and I know what I have to do, right? Because I made the list when I was stressed, and I came back and I see it and I'm like, that's not so bad. I could knock out this, and this today.
Yep.
And then all I have is these few things were left over, and I can put those on my calendar for tomorrow and I'm good. And I feel like that's it. Procrastination for me makes things worse. And I feel like if I just go and do something to get my head out of it, to me, that just feels like procrastinating. I have to be able to like I got to create a path for myself out of whatever I'm feeling. And so if it's multiple things, I make a list, I schedule it, and I know they're scheduled. I can go do something and then come back and either do something that contributes to it all or not. At least it's all scheduled and I know when I'm going to do it, and that's, for me, that's the only way out. There's a lot of ways to like snap my head out of it and feel better mentally, but to actually solve the problem, I think, is what ultimately is going to relieve that stress long term. And to do that, for me, the only way is to really put it into an array, as you'd call it if you were a database programmer, and you lay it all out, and you programmatically make a path that resolves the things that are piled up in your head. And then go do something so that you can actually come back and get it done and not be stressed and just running around in circles looking at the list.
Absolutely. Yeah. For me, I obviously get stuff done, right? That's my number one, is start crossing stuff off the list, start pursuing opportunities that are haunting me that I feel like I didn't pursue. But if I actually feel stressed, if I'm like, you know what, and I usually notice it with my responses to people that I care about. So for example, if Violet is really amped up and really hyper and really like excited about something, and I ask her like, not right now, sweetie, like if you can calm down, and then she keeps getting amped up, and I find myself getting like irritated or like angry, right? I don't ever lash anger towards her in any way, but I find myself being irritated. I'm like, I have to step back and be like, okay, this isn't the 3-year-old girl that I asked to calm down. This isn't her actions that are causing. This is me, right? This is me. And so what I do to check myself every single time is I watch speeches by ultra successful people. I don't know why. I don't know where I found that. I don't know exactly what it does for me, but that super centers me and super brings me back. And I'm like, all right, they went through all their stuff. They did what they did. I got this. This is such a small, minuscule thing compared to what it could be. And I don't necessarily have the exact same speeches I watch every time. I'll have one that I'll go to and then kind of find suggested videos from there. And then I'll write down quotes. That's a big thing. I write down those quotes, and that just kind of recenters me. And then I'm able to go, if I like lashed out or if I had anything negative, I'll make sure I apologize. That's something I'm big on, is I try to be accountable for my actions, even if they're small ones, even if some people would say they're justified. If like I said, Violet was excited, and then I kind of shut her down, be like, no, I can't do that. I'll go back and I'll tell her, or I'll tell Maddox or Jackson. I'm like, hey, I'm sorry, guys. I shouldn't have said that. I shouldn't have like dismissed you. I was just stressed. I'm better. Hey, you want to go play ball or whatever it is? But for whatever reason, watching speeches by successful people, it like really brings me back to reality and gives me like this crazy boost of motivation. It's my go-to, and it works so dang well.
Anything you can do to give yourself, I guess that's another really good one. Like if something gives you motivation, right? I think motivation is weird because I feel like it's very adjacent to other serotonin inducing thought patterns. You know what I mean? And like I feel like that's what that's doing for you. It's giving you that boost of serotonin, and it's also giving your brain something else to chew on, because with you're thinking like, either how can I put that to practice? How can I take this advice and use it? Where else could I apply this? And the next thing you know, your brain is like, because you have an overactive mind too. And it's, if just like it says, like idle hands are the devil's playground, right? I think an idle brain is like the place that those kinds of negative thoughts creep their way into. And it's just like one drop of ink can cloud a glass of water. You know what I mean? It's that sort of thing. I think it gives your brain something else to focus on that isn't the stress.
Big time. And also knowing that you can help other people. Here is your mom right here saying, talking to my son relieves my stress as he just listens and doesn't go into solution. So that's awesome. Also her kind of throwing a point at you like, Nick, please don't solve things. Just listen.
Well, and the thing is too, is like, Mom, you say that. And it's really cool to hear, actually, because I feel like I'm not good at that a lot, you know, and I've talked to my mom about that too, where I've said, God, I just can't stop like trying to fix things. Like sometimes people just want me to listen, and I
Mhm.
stuck at doing it. And she's like, it's so weird that you say that, because that's like what you're so good at doing when you talk to me,
That's
you know,
great.
and maybe it's like a weird positioning thing where like you know, she solved my problems for so long that I don't automatically think that she's asking me to solve hers. And maybe I
Yeah.
do just listen more. So I guess it proves that I'm capable of doing it. I'm just bad
Yep.
at recognizing when I need to.
Yep. And Chris, this is funny that you say this. I just posted a reel on my Instagram twice yesterday with some like captions below it that's almost identical to this. And he says, understanding if a situation is a you thing or a them thing helps immensely. And I
Mhm.
understand that entirely. It was a reel that was the method of let them. And it's the concept of we get so stressed about other people's actions, whether it's, hey, they went to the concert and didn't invite me. Hey, they left, they did this, right? In this world, they unsubscribed, they unfollowed me on Instagram, they said this. Just learn if it's somebody else, if it's a them situation, let them. If they want to go to the concert without inviting you, let them. If they want to
Mhm.
talk about you, let them. And that's so you're taking power back. You're owning that situation, and it's the exact same thing. It's a them thing. It's not a you thing. They didn't invite you. That's not you. That's them. But you got to release that fear of like missing out. You got to release that fear of not having control, and just simply, yeah, again, let them. So I really like that. Leo, I'm the same way. I do need to write things down. And Nick, I know you're the same way there too. I have to physically get it down, even if it's the concept of writing it down and deleting it. When I was a teacher, if I had a bad parent situation, I had to write my stern, some would say nasty response emails. I would write it on a note in my phone, and then I would delete it. I didn't write it
Mm.
on a draft of an email because that's dangerous, but I would write it on a note on my phone, and then I would delete it. I got it all out there, and then I just felt better about it. And
Yeah,
so, yeah, that
I
was big.
oftentimes, if I feel like sending an email, like that's a response email, I'll reply back to myself and I'll send
Yeah.
it to myself. And then I read it the next day. And then if I read it the next day and I still
How's
feel
the
like it was a
tone?
valid thing to say, I'll copy and paste it into a reply to the
Yep.
person. But
Yep.
if not, I just delete I delete the reply and I move on. But
For sure. For sure.
someone just said something in the chat. I saw it fly by. I don't know who said it, but it reminded me of something that someone told me a long time back. It was a friend of mine who was a yoga instructor, and he was big into like Chinese, but just Asian culture in general, I guess. But he was big into like Chinese folklore and just knew a lot about it. And when I talked to him about stress and how I pile things, he said it relates really closely to this old Chinese, theory. I'm not thinking of the right word right now, but it's basically what it says is that if you're a soldier in battle and you get struck by an arrow and you get hit by an arrow and you let it hit you, right, and it's stuck in there, the next arrow that comes at you and hits you is going to be the second arrow that's stuck in you, right? And if you
Yeah.
get enough of those arrows stuck in you, you'll die. But in like the Taoist way of looking at it, I guess, was that if you let those arrows pass through you and the arrow comes at you, you see it, you allow it to pass through you and it's gone. Then the next arrow that hits you is still just another first arrow. It's not a second arrow, right?
Yep.
And so if you don't focus on the negative stuff that's coming at you, you put it on a list, you let it move through you, you schedule it out, you process however you can. The next thing that comes at you is not going to pile on top of that one because it's the first one again, and you just get a bunch of first arrows. You never get the second, third, and then the death blow arrow, right? You never get the straw that broke the camel's back effect,
Yeah.
which I think I do by putting things on lists. I let them move through me and onto a list or onto a schedule or onto a task, you know, and then it's not sitting there burning in the back of my head anymore.
Yeah.
That really
No,
helps too. Letting things
absolutely.
pile up sucks.
Yeah. And for sure, Ruben, thank you for saying that. Yeah, came up with it last week, and Nick had reached out about a stressful day. I had some stressful stuff that was going on. I'm like, if Nick and I have it, I know everybody's got this, and I feel like it's good. It's therapeutic to discuss these things. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, man, that's awesome. I do want to show you guys one thing before we go. It's not a plug in any way, but just life changing for our family at least. So there's a book. It's on Amazon. There's a bunch actually. The Corbett, the author, is a bearded guy in this community, and it's called Worry Thoughts: A Story to Help Children Manage Their Worries and Anxious Thoughts. my son Jax, as we talked about many times, had some real serious like situational PTSD, real serious anxiety. He is not even a resemblance of the kid he was 6 months ago. And this book really genuinely helped him to a level that I can't even explain. And so many things that you guys are talking about here, so many references that are made is in this book. And the whole concept of it is like thoughts come and go. If you hold on to them, you make them what they are. But they break it down like let it go in the door and out the door. Those thoughts are just going to come and go. Don't let them sit on it any more than they should. And it is so good. It changed my son's life, man. I really has. And so if anybody ever wants a link to that, just let me know. It's huge. And obviously kids can cause stress, right? Kids can have those things. But I will say too, and this is Ruben's comment piggybacking on what I talked about, and I'll expand it from your kids to anybody in your life. And that's the idea of being able to apologize and how like freeing that is for yourself, how freeing it is for them. And it is, man. We're, especially us as men, as fixers, as authoritative figures to our kids, it's hard to acknowledge that you did something wrong. It's hard to acknowledge that you should apologize to your kids because they see you in this like Herculean light. They see you in this grand scale. But when you do acknowledge that, man, it takes it off of them, right? If I am stressed and a kid does something and I respond in a way that I'm not proud of, I don't want that on them. I don't want them thinking, what did I do to dad? What did I say to dad? You know, and guys, I'm not talking about anything bad. I'm just talking about, hey, dad, you want to go play basketball?
Think that.
Right. And if I respond with, no, not right now, guys. Come on, man. Like something like that. They think, what did I do? What happened? But then I have to process it. I have to acknowledge, be like, you know what? That was on me. That has nothing to do with this 6-year-old that wants to play basketball. I'll go sit them down. I always recommend getting on the same level as them. There's proven studies on how that can impact the way they receive a message. Get on their level, very clearly just apologize and talk to them like grown people. Don't talk to them like babies. Even my 3-year-old daughter, I'll say, Violet, I'm sorry. Dad was stressed and I would love to go play ball with you or whatever it may be. And the same in relationships. If you have a bad moment, you snap, you have an argument, whatever it is, don't be afraid to go back the next day and just be like, I want to apologize for yesterday. I was not in the right mindset. And almost always it's the case of, oh, don't even worry. It's not even a thing. But just getting that out there, getting it out, it's so beneficial for you, for them, for everybody. So it's kind of like a lasting message, I would say. One stress coping mechanism that a lot of people don't think of that I'll encourage is apologizing. That's it.
Yeah.
I really believe that.
Yeah, because like regret is a nasty causer of stress. Like, and if you're regretting something, that's just it's one of those parasites in the back of your head that's just gonna fester.
Yep. No doubt.
And Wilson, look at Chris saying that up there. I love seeing that. Chris says he has a Nick to help him with stress. And man, feeling like someone who causes stress sometimes, hearing that I help someone else's stress is, I mean, Chris gets me through half of my stress in my life, and it's just, but the stuff we send back and forth, we would definitely be committed for numerous times over, the things that Chris and I send back and forth to each other, but we need it. So it's having someone like that too, where you just don't have a filter and you can go back and forth and just puke what's on your mind and have them know they're not going to change their opinion of you is like a huge lifesaver.
For sure. All right, guys, hate to say it, but we are at the overtime of this show here. Amazing. I can speak for Nick on this one. I can speak for Jill as well. Don't be afraid to reach out. We are here for you guys, even if it's hey, Dan, Nick, I need to vent. I don't need a solution right now. Literally here for you. Email, Instagram, you name it. Nick will pick up the phone. I don't really like talking on the phone much. I'll be honest, guys. I will if it's an extreme situation, but I'm not a big fan of it. Nick is much quicker to go to the phone and talk with people when his schedule allows, of course. But reach out, you guys. If there's something that we can help with, if there's stress that you just want to vent, definitely will be there for you. We will be here next week, same time, 1 p.m. Eastern. Hope that you guys will put that on the calendar, not in a stressful way, but in a planning way. And then Nick, any final thoughts to button it up and then send them out of here?
Oh man, well, thanks for staying over with us, guys. This was an awesome one. This is one of those streams that could have gone on a while. I feel like we took a a potentially negative topic and turn it
Yeah.
into like a really productive, good one. You know,
Agreed.
so this is great. I'm glad to hear, you know, this group, especially this community, is awesome, right? I mean, everyone's so supportive of each other. There's been nothing but just good advice flying back and forth in here all day, which is just awesome to see. So thank you guys, as always, for taking a cool topic and making it even cooler by participating. And yeah, we'll see you guys next week. This was awesome. Thanks for watching.
All right, guys. One